Hi. The last video that I did where I brought up the subject of systemic racism, and I gave a definition of a systems analyst and what a systems analyst does in the computer world and how that we can apply that to all aspects of our lives. And that's what I want to focus on a little bit more today is that every part of our life is part of several systems. And so I want you to start thinking about systems, just systems thinking, that our lives are part of so many different systems we can't escape it. So, and one of those is family systems. Our biological family, our congregational family, whatever family or group of people we associate ourselves with is part of a family system. Take maybe when you were working, or if you are still working. Your work environment, the people you work with, are part of your work family system. A congregation is a family system. You ever hear the term, we've never done it that way before? Of course we have. That's kind of one of those common phrases in the church that, we've always done it this way. That's the way it's got to be. If we do it any other way, it's just not right. You see, because somebody somewhere is trying to upset the system, change the system. Nope, can't do that. Gotta keep it the same way. Let me read a definition or kind of an explanation about family systems theory. This was developed by Dr. Murray Bowen. I can't remember when, but you could always look it up if you wanted to read more about it, which I encourage you to do because it influences our lives so much that we have to pay attention to it. So let me read this to you. The family systems theory states that a family functions as a system wherein each member plays a specific role and must follow certain rules. Based on the roles within the system, people are expected to interact with and respond to another in a certain way. Patterns develop within the system, and each member's behaviors impact the other members in predictable ways. Depending on the specific system, these behavioral patterns can lead to either balance or dysfunction of the system or both at various points in time. So there's kind of an explanation of family systems theory. And so think about your family and how you act in your role in your own family and how other people act and react in your own family system. And I know I've said, at different occasions, different sermon illustrations, we've all got that crazy uncle or that crazy aunt that, when they show up to the party, it's who they are and they kind of disrupt things and, but it's just, they're part of the system. They're part of the system and that's the way it works. But we know that saying that we've never done it that way before, it reflects our attitudes about how much we resist change, how much we resist changing the system. Even though the system may need it, it may be dysfunctioning in a certain way, like a computer system. When something's wrong, the analyst comes in and figures it out and makes suggestions on how the system may change. And that's kind of it's a nuts and bolts type of system. It's hardware, it's a computer. But family systems, whether it's a biological family or a church family, to try and change the system, the way things have been done for so long, gosh, it's hard. It's hard. When I was at the church in Leominster, Mass., there was one gentleman, and we do this here too, but this gentleman, he was kind of one of the cantankerous members of the church, and he always sat in the third row down on, would have been my left as I faced the congregation. And one time our daughter and her friend had come to church and they were sitting in his seat. And they were there before church, they were there early with us. And so I just went over to them. I said, you don't want to sit here. This is where so-and-so sits. And, then they got up and moved really fast. But it's the system that's in place. And so think about your life and all the systems around, the church system, maybe your community system where you live, the friends that you interact with, and your biological family as well. And go back and think about a work family that you had that it worked well together, but then when someone leaves and a new employee comes along, it just changes everything. And when I was in New Orleans, I experienced that all the time with the volunteers that used to come on a long-term basis. One would leave, another would come, and it would upset the system, and the system would have to create a new balance in order to make it work effectively. And then a couple of times it didn't in New Orleans, where the person just didn't fit in. It wasn't a good fit, and so the system was dysfunctioning. And so that's what we are witnessing with systemic racism in our society today. The people that it affects the most, those are the ones that we see in the news and on the streets, because they're the ones that are hurt by it, are hurt by the dysfunction of racism in our society and the world. We're certainly not alone in this. Sadly, as I said before, human nature has always been this way. There's always a one up and a one down. And all we have to do is look at our own history in this country, and we see it over and over again. And I've said before that, it's oftentimes the latest immigrant group that is the one down. But in this case, with systemic racism, it's people of African American descent primarily that we are focused on. And what we don't get is because we don't feel it. We don't feel the dysfunction of the system because the system favors us. We don't like to admit that. We'd rather put the blame on someone else. But we have to listen. We have to listen to the people that are complaining about the system, how it doesn't work for them, and try to put ourselves in their shoes, ourselves in their place. And I've said that before in church too, and during a sermon about examples of that I've been a part of. And one of those, let me just think, I'm trying to think of several, or there's several running through my brain, but one in particular, when I tutored a family from Puerto Rico, tutored their young daughter who was in first grade at the time, and I was tutoring her in math. And I would show up right after supper time, it's like 6:30 or so in the evening. And when it came time for me to end the tutoring, the parent said to me, you're the first white person that has come into our home and treated us like normal. And I thought, how sad was that? They'd lived in the U.S. for 6 years at that time. That's just one example that I've experienced in my own life, but we really need to pay attention to the people that are crying out, because the system is in a state of dysfunction. And we're the ones that have to listen. We're the ones that have to help the system change. And sadly, we've never done it that way before. But now it's time to look at it in a different light, look at it from the perspective of someone who doesn't look like us, doesn't have the economic advantages that we do, maybe doesn't have the educational background that we do. We've really been blessed in our lives. And it's our duty, it's our calling, it's our obligation as Christians to share what we have, to try to make the system work for all people, no exceptions. God bless you all. Have a great day.